All right, welcome everyone. My name is Gina Groen, Executive Director of the Northside North Shore Chamber of Commerce. For more than 120 years, we have served the Northside business community. Our framework of activity is promote, connect, and support, and our activities benefit both the businesses and the community at large. So I'm pleased to welcome to today's forum all four candidates that will be on the Democratic primary ballot next month. Mayor Bill Peduto, State Representative Ed Gainey, Mr. Tony Moreno, and Mr. Mike Thompson. So thank you all for being here. And I would like to jump right into the forum. So for attendees and panelists, the format will be as follows. We will start with the candidates each providing a 2-minute opening statement. Following the opening statements, I will ask a series of questions, and the questions are focused primarily on the business community, secondarily on the North Side as a geographic area. Just for everyone's information, none of the candidates have seen these questions in advance. Responses to the questions will be limited to 90 seconds, and candidates will be muted when the timer reaches 0. There should be a timer here on the screen, and unfortunately, we're not able to activate it. So we will be kind with the timer, but we will mute you when 90 seconds is up. Let's see, the hot seat of first respondent for each question will be rotated among the candidates. Around 2:15, we will move to the closing section of the forum, and each of you will have 3 minutes to provide final remarks. And last, we ask all of you to refrain from any ad hominem attacks, but you may use your response time to address or respond to another candidate if you choose. So let's get started. For opening statements, the order will be Mayor Peduto, then State Representative Gainey, then Mr. Moreno, and then Mr. Thompson. So Mayor Peduto, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for putting this forum together. The past 7 years have been a transformative time, not only in the North Side, but throughout the city of Pittsburgh. We've seen the changes that have occurred in our economy. We've seen the changes that have occurred through crises. But what we haven't seen in the past was government making changes in order to become what Pittsburgh is becoming. Our past 7 years, we've changed the very structure of city government. We've created new programs and new departments in order to be able to recognize the challenges of a 21st century Pittsburgh. We brought in an entire new team of people in order to be able to recognize that. And we've gone back to the future. We've gone back and looked at examples of where community-led change helps to drive city government. So we've worked with each of the neighborhoods in the North Side. We've worked with the Greater Northside Leadership Council in order to be able to create a vision of where each neighborhood wants to go. And through each neighborhood, we put together priorities, the areas where people have seen where change has occurred and where they want to be able to make sure that the character of the community stays intact. This new approach to city government, this new approach to governance within the city of Pittsburgh has reached all throughout the city. And we've begun to see development occurring in areas that we didn't see it before, but it hasn't hit every area yet. And that is why I'm running for another term, to be able to complete a job which we started, which assured that we would not be a city that managed decline, but a city that managed growth, and to assure that we would not remain a city financially distressed, but a city that saw stability, and to assure that opportunity would be presented not to some, but to all.
Thank you. Representative Gainey?
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to a healthy discussion about how we grow the city, about how we deal with social issues such as affordable housing, to making sure that we can talk about police-community relations in a way that brings us together and not divides us, to thoroughly talking about business retention and business investments and how we as a city can make it more easy for us to be able to deal with license, be able to deal with permits and inspections, to talk about how we as a city can come together to ensure that we're building a city for everybody, where everybody feels included, but nobody feels left behind. We know in this city, there's many neighborhoods on the north side and throughout the rest of the city that felt no disinvestment and felt nobody cared about. It's time that we stop that. It's time that we build a city where everybody feels included, where everybody has an opportunity to work, live, and thrive and succeed here. Where no report will talk about how deplorable anything is, but we'll have reports of talking about growth and prosperity for people in the city of Pittsburgh. That's important. It's important that we all see ourselves and our culture invested in this city. And that's how you build a city. You build it through the people, not bricks and mortars. And we want to work with the Northside groups to ensure that they feel that way and to ensure that their community is taken care of. I look forward to a healthy debate today. I thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Moreno.
Thank you for having me. I'm Tony Moreno. Hello, Northside. Hello, City of Pittsburgh. I'm running for mayor because we've been left out. They made decisions to build things and advance our city, but they didn't do it equally. People were ignored and we've been neglected. Our political leaders are putting political answers on people problems, and it's time to stop that. The things that are happening have root causes, and we need to address those things. We need to get into what is causing the problems we see today. We need to get into why we have issues in crime, why we have issues in housing, and it's very simple. These are financial problems. We need to build out and fix the things that are broken before we start building new things. When you drive around our city, you see abandoned houses that have been that way for years. You see streets that are falling apart. You see garbage. It's not a priority. We are going to make it a priority to take care of our city and make our neighborhoods first. We're going to train a workforce that is existing inside of our city that have been ignored for a long time. You hear them crying for help. They're begging for the services that they deserve and need and they should get, but instead our political leaders make them do the things that they want to do in order to receive those services. And that's why I'm here. I'm going to go in like I have been for the past 24 years of my life serving the city of Pittsburgh as a police officer, now retired. I'm coming back into service so I could go back to the neighborhoods and listen to them and give them the things that they want, the way they need them. Not the way that I see it, not the way that other people see it, but the way the community sees it. That's my goal, is to bring 90 neighborhoods back to one great Pittsburgh, and we can do this together. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Mr. Mike Thompson. And you're on mute.
Hey, you ready?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Mike Thompson. I'm running for mayor. I think we have to focus more on small businesses and less on very large businesses. So we need to not give tax breaks to the largest employer in America. And we have to reevaluate tax breaks, period. Time and again, only the most powerful people get tax breaks and tax incentives from the city. And that is discrimination against our small businesses, okay? We have to have a very simple proposal. No more tax breaks. Tax breaks and tax incentives are bad because people want to give political donations so that they get one once you're in office. So my campaign, we take no money from developers, corporations, or other similar entities. And then when I'm in office, I'm going to give out no money to those people either, okay? The taxpayer money should stay in the city coffers, and we should spend that on improving our city. We need better schools. We need better roads. We need better garbage pickup. We need lots of more city services. And that's just step one. We also have to dream bigger. We have to start projects now. I'm 38. I'll be around for the next 30 plus years helping out, okay? So what else do we need? We need to think bigger. The NBA is expanding. I think we should need a new NBA team in Pittsburgh right there on the north side next to the other stadiums. Now, if we start now, we might be one of the next two teams or the one after that. The mayor after me or the mayor after that, 63rd, 64th. Eventually, one of the mayors will get an NBA team if we start now. And we need to lead the way in other ways, like clean water. We should have Northside riverfront water recreation. Unfortunately, our water is not clean enough yet to get to do that. We need to have more 30-year plans and fewer 1 or 2 year plans. That's my hope. Thank you.
Thank you all. So moving on to our first question, and the first respondent will be Representative Gainey. Question number 1 is about the mayor's role and responsibilities. So let's start at the basics and talk about the role of a mayor conceptually. What, in your words, are the primary responsibilities of a mayor? And what are the principal areas of progress that a mayor can affect? Representative Gainey?
I think the primary role is city services. That's number 1. And we know that in city services, we have had a problem. Public works, we know that workers didn't want to go to work this winter because they didn't feel like they had the right equipment. They didn't feel like they had the right tracking devices to be able to deal with the snow that was on our streets. So several of them didn't want to go to work because they feel that they didn't have the right equipment. We know that it snows every year in the city of Pittsburgh. And we know that every year that we have to make sure that our public works has the right equipment in order to remove snow, particularly when you live on hills, particularly when you're living in communities where you know that if that hill is not plowed, you're going to have a difficult time getting off that hill. Garbage, making sure that our garbage is picked up and the morale of our garbage is, our environmental services is working sound. The primary role of a mayor is to deal with city services. That's the primary role. And we have some secondary roles too that I hope that we can get into. But the primary role is to make sure that city services are working well and that our city is running and that the morale is high and that we're doing what's necessary to build a strong workforce development that is diverse, that has the right equipment, and that is in the community, serving the community and making sure things get done. If you walk outside and you see our sidewalks, how crumbled they are, our side cuts, the way our streets need paved, we know that snow removal was a problem. These are primary responsibilities that the residents of the city of Pittsburgh, they expect us to do. And we should be doing them at excellence. And that's the primary role of a mayor when we talk about city services.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
Mayor 101. Mayor 101 is public works and public safety. We have to be safe. That's our prime, very first responsibility is keeping our citizens safe because nothing else can come forward unless we are safe. Having a professional law enforcement community, a professional fire department, a professional medic group. We have parking enforcement and crossing guards. They all need to be treated with dignity and respect. We need to arm our police officers with the ability to treat people as trauma-informed officers. We need to make sure they have the equipment and training to go forward and act in the way that we expect them to and the neighborhoods can relate to them. The next thing we need to make sure we do is have our public works funded and operating in a way that takes care of our city. 9% of our budget goes to public works, and that can't happen. We need to make sure our city is clean, that the streets are operable, that we can receive the services equally. We saw a winter where all of our GPS systems were broken, not all of them, but they weren't operating appropriately. We received that system from New York. New York saw it as a failing process and we accepted it, and it failed in the same way here. We didn't pivot correctly and make it happen right. We just continued on doing what we're doing. We don't road prep for snow. There's other things that need to happen, and it's just policy. If policy worked the right way, we'd be able to address it. If we were to respect our—
Thank you. And next, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, the mayor is responsible for basic city services, so potholes and graffiti. Now, time and again, I can tell you, I myself have reported more than 20 instances of graffiti to 311. I did it in January. They didn't fix any of it. So I retweeted them to 311 this week. And yet again, they're going to do nothing. Okay. There's one officer, Fonz was his old name when he was a graffiti artist, on the graffiti patrol. And we need, city services, we need police officers to look after the graffiti and report it. And then we need public works to go out and fix it. Okay, you'll hear our current mayor talk about how we have to increase the tax base. You want to increase property values, but if there's graffiti everywhere, no one's going to want to live here. It's not good for tax revenue. It's not good for the city. It's not the image we want. And time and again, my neighbors, we talk about the graffiti. We want the graffiti fixed. And that's just basic city services. You're responsible for clearing the streets of snow, garbage pickup, getting rid of all the graffiti, and fixing potholes. That's the primary responsibility of the mayor, and it's not working right now.
Thank you. And the last respondent then is Mayor Peduto.
Thank you. As each of the previous speakers has stated, the primary role of the mayor is to provide services to the people of Pittsburgh in an effective, efficient, and equitable way. And it's the oversight of that that comes with the job. But there is a second track. There is a parallel track that comes with being the mayor of Pittsburgh. It was advice that was given to me in my first year in 2014 by a 14-year-old young girl from Beltshoover. And what she said was very simple. She said, "You can't make choices for me. I'll make my own choices. You can provide me opportunity." And the job of a mayor, more so than a president or a governor, is that of providing opportunity to the people they serve, to being able to see where an opportunity does not exist and create policies or programs to be able to do so. That was during the first year of the summer of Learn and Earn, where we went from less than 150 kids to over 600 kids getting summer jobs. Last year during COVID, we had over 2,000 kids. This summer, our goal is every kid that wants a summer job will have a summer job. But opportunity doesn't know age. It's for every resident to have a better chance of making their life and the life of their family or their business better.
Thank you. Moving on to question number 2. This question is about permits and zoning, especially for commercial development. And the first respondent will be Mr. Moreno. While the permitting process has moved online, it now takes much longer to actually get a permit approved. And the process for getting inspections also takes much longer. These delays are adding months to construction timelines. This situation has been exacerbated by COVID, but the underlying process needs to be fixed. What will you do to improve the process? Mr. Moreno.
Immediately reduce the bureaucracy involved in it. The licensing Bureau of Permits and building inspection has been weaponized by this administration. They use their ability to hold back through the inspection process as a tool to get more out of the businesses. When you have a counter that's ready to go, like over on the north side, they put a new gas station. They were supposed to be up and running last November. It took them over a year and a half to get going because they made them raise the counter a half inch. So instead of allowing that business to operate, they were not allowed to open. They built a sidewalk to nowhere. It's really difficult when you have this overbearing, overreaching process by people that aren't even certified professionals in the area that they're inspecting or approving to get anything done. We saw Penn Avenue completely shut down in that 800 block because it was so hard for that developer to move forward. He just left $10 million on the table there and walked away from it because of the process. So streamlining it, making it easier and making it available for everybody to see where they need to fix things and to make them all happen at the same time so you can go forward and get your business up and running and you could start paying taxes here. It's important to make sure that we're doing this the right way, keeping people safe, but opening it up and not using it as a enforcement tool against people that don't exactly align with your way of thinking.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Mike Thompson.
Well, certainly we don't want excessive delays. Ideally, it would be a self-funded department and not a drain on city services. So, you know, if the fees and the cost to apply for the license of the permits is equal to the money going out, then you can obviously hire more people. It's a question of cost versus time. Now, if you're a new business trying to get started, the most expensive cost for you is time, okay? And if the licenses and the fees are a little higher, but you get better response, then maybe that's the way to go. But certainly regulations have a role in our society. We just need more timely enforcement of the regulations. Certainly things like the American with Disabilities Act, we have to make sure that all people, not just healthy people, have access to your business. And we have to make sure that the counter height is appropriate so that someone with a disability can enter your store. I think the delays are disconcerting. I mean, we need to make sure that we enforce the rules in a timely fashion. And if that means more investment from the city, we have a huge stimulus package coming. We certainly could hire more inspectors, more qualified trade inspectors, and they can do their job in a more timely fashion. I think the delays are what we really need to look into, hire more personnel and do a more professional job.
Thank you. And next, Mayor Peduto.
When we took office in 2014, the Bureau of Building Inspection didn't have computers. They didn't even have an office that was wired to have computers. They didn't have cell phones. So if you wanted to contact an inspector, you had to call between 8 and 9 a.m. or else they were out in the field and you had no way to get a hold of them. We invested in the technology needed in order to see what we're seeing now, an economic boom happening throughout the city. Over $1 billion in permits every year since we've been in office. And during that same time period, the number of permits being requested coming in at a much higher rate than what we've seen ever in the past. Now, this applies to everything from someone putting in a new kitchen to somebody who is being able to build a new office tower. And what we have done is we have retrained our employees in order to be able to do multiple inspection, not just one inspection and then you have to wait for the next one. Every single permit is online for every single resident to see in exactly where it stands in the system. Yes, there are times when something gets backlogged, but the vast majority of that time is when somebody tries to do something outside of building code. Building code is a law, and you need to work within that law or else we cannot inspect, and we simply can't turn away or look the other way. You have to be able to follow the code. The city of Pittsburgh is in charge of enforcing building code and criminal code. That's the responsibility of the city.
Thank you very much. And last, Representative Gainey.
There's no question that when we talk about permits, license, and inspection, there's a problem. Whether you talk to businesses, developers, or even the people that work there, they'll tell you that it's an issue. And the reality is, as a city, of course, we have to follow the law. That's a given. But how do we work with the community to better serve you? To make sure that we have a system in place that is easy to get through, is easy to access, follows the laws, but also is able to make sure that the people that need to get into permit, license, and inspections, they have an easier time. That's when you work with your business community. That's what it's there for. How do we work with you to create a system that is better for you? That's what I mean by bringing Pittsburgh together and talk about how we do these wonderful things. We do them together. There's a way of doing it. Everybody can't be wrong. If inside they're saying that there's a problem with PLI, if the businesses are saying that there's a problem with PLI, if the public is saying there's a problem with PLI, there's a problem with PLI. It's the common denominator. But we can work together to improve it. But we have to bring in people and say, hey, how do we serve you better? What can we do? We understand the law, but let's work together to make a process that's good for everyone.
Thank you. And moving on to the next question then. So this question is about our parks and quality of life. And the first respondent will be Mr. Thompson. With the new parks tax being collected, how would you improve parks on the north side and how would you do so equitably?
Well, first of all, let me say I love our parks. I live in Oakland and I go to Shenley Park and Frick Park all the time, at least once a week. And I can see that, sometimes those parks need small improvements, but it's a little bit unfair because I have a car and I have access to great parks. And we have to make sure that all residents of Pittsburgh also have access to parks as I do. And so I come from a place of immense privilege. And in our underserved neighborhoods, they also need excellent parks. And so a parks tax is a good idea, and we need to invest in all of our parks, not just the main parks that serve people like me who have a car and have access to all the best parks in Pittsburgh. And I really feel that it's been a step in the right direction. We've acknowledged our disinvestment in some of these communities over the years, and we're starting the process towards investing more in all our communities and all of our people, not just some. And I really feel like it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And next is Mayor Peduto. You are on mute.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting too. The past 3 mayors have been Northside residents, and yet the Northside parks have been left behind. Our administration recognized that early on, and we've been working with the neighborhood groups in order to be able to make large capital investments throughout all of the neighborhoods in the Northside. We have 165 parks in the city of Pittsburgh, and for the most part, for the past several decades, we've ignored them. We have parks that were created under the Caligiuri administration that had never been upgraded. So before we even proposed a park tax in order to be able to take a big initiative and improve all of them, we created an equity report to look at where the need was the greatest in the communities with the least means. And that equity report's online. So you can look and see where your park ranks out of 165 in order to see over the next 20 years how we will be utilizing hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money matched with private and foundation funds in order to be able to create a national example of a park system. Pittsburgh is a beautiful green city, and the parks are an equalizing force that everyone has an opportunity to use free of charge. We need to invest in them, but we need to do it equitably. That's why we created the report before we ever asked for the tax.
Thank you. And next is Representative Gainey.
I love our parks. I think we have some of the most beautiful parks in the nation. I really enjoy our parks. It's meditation, it's everything that we need. But in our neighborhoods, particularly in our vulnerable neighborhoods, and you have a lot on the north side as well, these parks have not been upgraded for a long time. We're talking about where children can go play, and they're playing on swings that are broken. They're playing on basketball courts that don't have no nets up. They're playing on sliding boards that's been old for decades. We always talk about reports, and I'm not saying that reports are bad. Of course you want to do a report. But it seems like all the reports we talk about get stuck in one place on a shelf. And we never end up implementing what we need to do to really put the right investment into what we need to grow. Parks is a wonderful thing. And a lot of these young kids, they need the parks. When I was young, that's where everybody went to. And we had good parks in Liberty Park. So I know how important parks are. But I know the investment that these parks need as well, not just our regional parks, but our neighborhood parks, particularly where the vulnerable live that have not seen any investment in their parks. That's what I mean when I say that people have felt left behind. Neighborhoods have felt left behind because they have not seen that level of investment. And if we're going to be sure to make some type of way for our children to have a place to go, parks are a beautiful thing. And we need to make sure that we're investing in them to a way to where they're up for this summer so our children have somewhere to go. We could have been doing this. We could have been doing this. This isn't new.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Moreno.
This is the perfect example of taxation without representation. We've been sold a bill of goods and neglect. Go up to Riverview Park right now and just drive around that road. For 20 years, they've been studying on why that earth is moving, and they came up with a process that there's worms that aren't there because berries are being eaten by deer and the birds don't come anymore, so the worms are moving the earth. And they've done nothing about it. So the administration reduces the forestry department, reduces the parks department, moves it into environmental services, and then reduces environmental services by $1.7 million. So of course our parks are falling apart. They're neglected. They're not prioritized. Then you come out with this parks tax that says that they are going to have a conservancy. They didn't tell us what conservancy it was. It could have been the Tony Moreno Conservancy of Conservancies. Now they have collected that money and they can't even spend it right. It's in a trust. What kind of trust? Nobody knows. but they took that money and didn't tell us how it was going to be spent. And the very first layout had the north side getting zero. Let me tell you again, $0 coming from this park tax, and they had Highland Park getting 36 million. That's neglected. It's very intentional. What we need to do is make them accountable for this money. They put that tax without the Homestead Act and without the senior discount. So these seniors are paying the highest rate in that tax. It's horrible and it shouldn't happen.
Thank you. And moving on to the next question. This question is about small businesses on the north side. And the first respondent will be Mayor Peduto. What is the highest priority issue that you would work on as it relates to small businesses on the north side?
Well, it would depend on two parts. Number one, the immediacy, those that have been affected by COVID, especially within the hospitality, entertainment industries. And that would involve places such as James Street Tavern, Park House, others that we don't want to lose. So there's an immediacy factor in being able to provide direct assistance to making sure that they remain a part of the fabric of the north side. And then the second is on a longer term. Looking at the business districts throughout the north side, there are much different needs. Whether you're looking at Observatory Hill or Brighton Heights, or you're looking in Woods Run or East Ohio Street, the needs of each of those communities are different. Working together with the chambers and with the communities in order to be able to establish what the needs and the wants are is something that our administration will continue to do, and to continue to coordinate with the Northside Leadership Conference as well. In the years in the past, there have been requests for facade grants for beautification of Main Street. But in other areas, it's been a request for more presence of police officers and seeing them on the beat more often. Each neighborhood within the north side has unique needs, and we'll listen to those communities in order to match them.
Thank you. Next, Representative Gainey.
We have a great opportunity with the Recovery Act, with the money that's coming out of it, to do something for small businesses. What we should have been doing is working with small businesses from the beginning, when we knew this money was coming, to talk about what do you need. So whether it's the Northside Chambers or whoever, I'm willing to sit down and talk about how can we help our small businesses with this money coming in right now. I think that's critical. You know the Northside better than anybody here. You know where this investment needs to go to help these small businesses that have been injured by COVID-19. Particularly our most vulnerable communities that have small businesses that were just at the line right there, and how COVID has impacted them. We need to reach out to those vulnerable communities and talk about how this influx of money that we're getting is able to help them as well. We need to work together to ensure that we're doing what's right for those small businesses and vulnerable communities and small businesses in our city. We have many chambers in this city that can help us, but we got to communicate. We got to talk to each other about what needs to happen in these neighborhoods to ensure that we're investing it wisely. Of course, we can put it in a rainy day fund. That's good for Wall Street. But the reality is it's raining in Pittsburgh right now. It's raining on our small business community right now. And we need to be working with small business to invest as a good faith effort and plant that seed of hope that we're here for them. That's what they need to see from us. Let's work together to ensure that it's going in the right direction.
Thank you. And next is Mr. Moreno.
May I have the question again, please?
What is the highest priority issue that you would work on as it relates to small businesses on the north side?
Incentivizing businesses to come back to the city, make sure that we have a tax structure that invites them back. And it's not just a structure where you give them a tax break for 5 years. We tried that, it didn't work, they leave. We need to make it so they could step into the city now and start becoming prosperous and have the ability to grow. And we can get those businesses up and running by lowering the bureaucracy they have in the licensing and permits. It's such a weapon that they use to keep the businesses out that they don't want and invite businesses in that they do. I walk those East Ohio Street businesses and it breaks my heart because those were my beats at one point. The boarded up businesses are a nightmare. There are no police officers there because it's not a priority, and you see nothing but filth and trash. Who wants to invest in that? Nobody wants to walk down on East Ohio Street and go see that happening. The Park House is closed. James Street is closed. They're gone. We need to make sure that we can keep these legacies in our neighborhoods by listening to what the neighborhoods want. We need to reach out to the struggling neighborhoods and find out what Manchester wants. Manchester needs to be able to look and see what they can have and do to grow themselves out. They're being ignored and they need to be listened to. We have the ability to go in there right now with money from the government and open up some investment opportunities for all neighborhoods, but go to the ones that have been crying out for help and been left there to suffer.
Thank you. And last is Mr. Thompson.
Yes, well, we really need to offer a fair deal to all businesses, small and large. Time and again, we prioritize large businesses. We give away large amount of taxpayer money through tax incentives and tax breaks. And we have to say no. All of our business should be treated equally. We need to give out no more tax breaks and tax incentives. And this means we have more money coming in and we can do things like improving city services for our small businesses. We can hire more inspectors. We can streamline the licensing department. And we have to not give away all of our trade secrets to the richest man on earth, okay? And then not offer equal access to all the information about our building projects to the small businesses. You have to treat them equally. If you're gonna give away the secret sauce to the richest man in America, you have to also give it to the small businesses. We have to treat them equally. They are equal in value in our hearts. Our small businesses are equal to our large businesses. We have to make sure to treat them equally.
Thank you. And the next question then. This question is about affordable housing on the north side. First respondent will be Representative Gainey. Affordable housing is a topic that you have all mentioned publicly, especially with real estate prices in some areas of the north side skyrocketing. What are your concrete solutions to address affordable housing issues, especially on the north side?
On the north side and throughout this city, we've seen 7,000 people be pushed or forced out. 7,000. We've seen the city become less affordable to live in. We have to be focused on affordable housing. There are things that we can do to get there. One is inclusionary zoning. I think we have to work on that very hard and get it through, so that the affordability is embedded into the project, not an add-on. We have to build affordability based on our people, not based on bricks and mortars, or giving it to our friends or giving market rate to our friends because we feel that's the best method. We need to work to ensure that our city is more affordable and we're bringing people back to the city. So many people want to come back to the city that's been forced out. When I say 7,000 people has been forced out and we talk about expanding the tax base, if 7,000 people, if African Americans have been forced out, how do we expand the tax base if we were not included? How do we feel that we're involved? And that's throughout the city, the north side and the whole city. We need to be diligent on making sure that affordability in housing is all throughout the city so that we can bring our people back and they can play a role in this new economy. That's affordable. And that's what we need to be laser focused on.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
I watched gentrification happen in Pittsburgh, starting in Manchester under Tom Murphy. Tom Murphy is currently a civilian contracted URA worker in this administration. Representative Gainey is on the URA board and Mayor Peduto controls it. They have the ability to fix this now. They've had the ability to fix it, but instead they're building new while we suffer. We have these abandoned properties all over the city that could be refurbished and used for housing now. Instead, we're trying to make a profit off of it. It's horrible to see. Now that I'm in this process, I realize where it goes, and that's gentrification. We don't provide jobs for people to stay here. We keep them under government control and do not allow them to build out the way they want to live. If you give somebody jobs that they could build careers out of, they're able to become tax-paying citizens inside of our city and have a voice. Instead, what we did, particularly here on the north side, is take these people that live in government housing, spread them throughout the neighborhoods, which caused a conflict. We didn't give them a choice on where they lived. We moved them, and then we built housing that nobody else can afford. So we need to start listening to the neighbors. We need to hear what they have to say and give them the opportunity to live where they want. And that's where financial freedom comes from. If you give them training and you give them driver's licenses, they can now work where they want and live where they want. We have to start right in our own neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Mr. Thompson.
Well, I live in government housing myself, and let me just say, all people are people and everyone deserves a place to live. But you have to look at, this is a problem that many cities have, not just Pittsburgh, okay? And other cities have done something we haven't yet. They've mandated affordable housing. All of the large new construction projects need to have, at a minimum, 25% of their units as affordable units. You need to integrate people who are of lesser means into market rate housing. Make them your neighbors. You don't want to concentrate them all in one location. You need to integrate them amongst the market rate housing and have a very firm 25% of all large new developments be affordable housing. One of the ways to do this is to not take any money from developers and then not give out tax breaks to developers. And you have a firm law that requires the building of affordable housing, and you need to integrate them into the new neighborhoods where you're building new units.
Thank you. And Mayor Peduto?
Yeah, I think the North Side's a good example where I may disagree with two of the candidates. Inclusionary zoning or mandatory zoning of affordability, I believe, should be done at the neighborhood level, and it should start from the community itself and not be dictated by City Hall. That's what we did in Lawrenceville and worked with the organizations in Lawrenceville in creating inclusionary zoning for Lawrenceville. But just because it works in Lawrenceville doesn't mean it would work in Knoxville or that it's needed in Beltshoover. And it's the same within the North Side. You look at areas right now like Spring Hill or Troy Hill or Fineview, and you see the housing and the market starting to take off. And you look at other areas like Spring Garden and where that hasn't happened. And there is not really an expensive market in Spring Garden to compensate to needing inclusionary zoning. Any new housing that's being developed is affordable. So, look at each separately and start to understand that the North Side may be one area of the city, but it is very different neighborhood by neighborhood. The work we did at Sandstone Quarry, working with the Allegheny Dwelling Tenant Council was critical in providing new subsidized housing into the North Side, which improves not only that community, but Fineview as well, in working together between those neighborhoods to create a vision for affordability. You need to get down into the.
Thank you. And moving on to the next question. This question is about public safety in the North Side business districts. And the first respondent will be Mr. Moreno. Many small business districts throughout the North Side are concerned by ongoing issues of violent crime, drug abuse, and prostitution. What specific solutions do you have to address these issues?
Priority. We have the finest trained law enforcement officers the country has. We are the state model in crisis intervention training. We don't use our police officers correctly. There's an edict out there that we want to defund the police, that we have to reduce the police officers in the neighborhoods or redirect how they're being used. I think we should be allowing our police officers to do what they're trained for. And we need to make sure that these policies are enforced. We need to have customer service training. We need to have officers that are trauma-informed responding to these areas, and we need to target these areas. East Ohio Street was just brought up. East Ohio Street is so terrible. To walk down there and see the open-air drug dealing breaks my heart. It breaks everybody's heart that once watched East Ohio Street start to build and now go into decline because we don't allow our police officers to do their job. If allowed, they can do it safely and they could do it humanely with empathy. They could do it with their ear to the neighborhoods. People are crying out for help. They're crying out for protection, and we need to give it to them. We need to have leaders that stand up for the police officers and also listen to the community, that can go back and say what's needed and then have those directions there. We created a whole new community policing that's not even outfitted with computers. There's a lot of talk and not a lot of action going on right now. We just redirected $11 million out of the police budget.
Thank you. And Mayor Perduto, you're next.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong order. Mr. Thompson, you're next.
Well, thirdly, drug use and prostitution and crime are a real problem. I think, first of all, I disagree with the idea of defunding the police. I want the police to be better police, and you want social workers to be better social workers. You need the appropriate person to respond. If there's a drug issue, we need to remember that drug users and people engaged in sex work are also people, and this is not their goal in life, okay? And you have to, the Jewish principle is tikkun olam, heal the world. You have to treat people like people, and you have to have a softer approach, okay? In Seattle, they actually offer help to people who are engaged in these issues, and they reach out. And basically, you have social workers that come out and they address the needs of these vulnerable communities, and they help them out. You treat them as people, not just a law enforcement problem. And if you do that, you will find progress. If you meet them where they are and say, this is the person, this is my fellow man, then there are many ways to treat this problem and slowly resolve it. It won't be fixed overnight. We have to acknowledge our shared humanity with the other people, and we have to treat them like people, help with drug addiction, help with getting them out of prostitution. Just putting them all in jail and more policing is not the solution.
Thank you. And now Mayor Perduto.
Well, I first have to say I agree with everything that Mr. Thompson just said. We look at the situation of people who need help and we treat it as a criminal activity. There's nothing in the crime code about being homeless or being addicted or having mental health issues. And the Allegheny County Jail should not be the largest facility of treating those individuals. We began a program, one of the first of its kind in the country, that allows social workers to work hand in hand with our police department. We have 24/7 social workers on the streets of the city of Pittsburgh who are trained in dealing with those issues. We send our police first to make sure that everyone's safe, including that person. But then we send an individual who's trained to be able to deal with the mental health side, to be able to deal with the addiction side, to be able to deal with the homeless side. We worked hand in hand with Light of Life to build a state-of-the-art facility for the Northside in order to be able to help those people to transition back into life. As we see the situation on the street, it is not solved by additional police, and it is not solved by defunding the police. It's solved by reforming what policing looks like and having professionals in social work working hand in hand with the police.
Thank you. And last, Representative Gainey.
Again, if everything was going the way that we're talking about, then the question wouldn't be asked. We don't see it. I believe we have to have public health advocates and social workers on our streets. We have to partner with them, because I don't believe putting drug addicts or sex workers in jail is the answer. It's not. It's not at all. These drug addicts are not on the corner because they want to be there. They need help. They don't need to go to jail. And it can't be something that's invisible. It has to be visible. We have to have locations set up on those business corridor districts that they can get their help. We also need community-oriented police. And this is not about defund the police or reshuffle. This is about having community-oriented policing that is working with public health advocates and social workers to discuss how we can better help those that's on drugs, help those that are homeless. We have that opportunity. The problem is we talk about it always, but we don't see it. If you want people to be safe and feel safe in business corridors, they have to see that it's working. That's why the question was asked. We don't see it. We just hear the rhetoric. We have to move away from rhetoric and show our communities that we're serious about them.
Thank you. And keeping with the theme of public safety, this next question is about your professional experience with police accountability. And the first respondent will be Mr. Thompson. What experience do you have in your current role or in previous roles in addressing police accountability, especially as it pertains to the police union? How will police accountability play a role in your position if you are elected? Mr. Thompson.
Well, as vice president of the South Oakland Neighborhood Group, I actually helped interview some of the incoming police officers. Mayor Peduto put in a program where the community was allowed to be part of the process of hiring new police officers. So I've seen that from the inside. As far as accountability goes, my vision is that we're kind of stuck. Like with Act 111, we're hamstrung in. We don't have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. Our PA legislature is unfortunately Republican, and they don't want to reform these issues. So we have to think more innovatively out of the box. You know, if you look at East Pittsburgh as patrolled by the state police, that's something we could do, and we could transition to a charter police force. My sister's a public school teacher, and she's not in a union. And certainly there's a way that we can work ourselves around the union. We have to play hardball. Unfortunately, the union gives a bad name to police officers because they protect the bad police officers, and then everyone views the police as bad because there are bad police officers on the force. We really have to play hardball, and we have to find a way to work around the union because it's not working right now. It's not working at all.
And next, Mayor Peduto.
I started working for the city of Pittsburgh in 1995 as the chief of staff to then city councilman Dan Cohen. And that was the same year that Johnny Gamage was murdered. My introduction was that. And I worked and supported Salah Udine in the creation of a Pittsburgh Citizens Review Board. As the staffer, I was responsible of writing the legislation to create this Citizens Police Review Board. And I was involved in the very early years in the selection of the first board memberships and getting it off the ground. As mayor, I took oversight of the police out of public safety, and I moved the Office of Municipal Investigations under the law department. I hired a new director who came in and a new solicitor to overhaul all parts of the Office of Municipal Investigation and to complete its independence. I've worked hand in hand with the Citizens Police Review Board as mayor. I settled the lawsuits of the previous administration with their police community relations and the way that they were recruiting officers that was proven to be racist. And I made the changes in order to be able to take those practices out of the selection of our officers. I worked with the Obama administration to change the training of our officers, and became one of the 4 first cities to implement implicit bias training for our officers as mayor.
Thank you. And next is Representative Gainey.
Yes, we have to stand up. And there are times that we had opportunities to stand up that we did. We have to show our residents in the city that we're serious about police accountability and about police community relations. You had a private Facebook chat with police officers from Pittsburgh talking about how deplorable Black lives were, how deplorable the LGBTQIA movement was, and we heard nothing from downtown. Even though we understand the severity of police community relations, there was not one mention of these officers, of the investigation. Even in the chat, they're saying that if a Black female police officer was called for backup, that they would not go because she marched with them. That should have been investigated, and they should have been fired. And if we want to talk about Act 111, we're not changing Act 111 tomorrow, but that don't mean that we could just sit down. If those officers come out with racial tendencies and they say things that are racial in nature, they should be fired. And if we have to fight with the FOP because they want them to get their jobs back, then allow that public relations to happen, because they have to make a decision on whether they want to go to war for bad officers or for good officers. And we have a lot of good officers, but we The mayor of any city has to stand up and say what is wrong. And when that happened, no one stood up. We had an officer that had two black women, two black children pointing guns at each other. Nothing was said. We can't build trust like that. Matter of fact, that erodes trust in government. We need leadership that's going to stand up for police accountability. We have to improve police community.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Moreno.
There is zero police accountability in our administration. First, we sent an officer to the Obama's 21st century policing in Washington, D.C., who was the subject matter expert in crisis intervention. And she spoke to to all the police leaders in the country about how successful that operation is. She brought back recommendations to the police department and none of them were implemented. Right now, we have an assistant chief that is responsible for over $700,000 worth of taxpayer money in civil rights violations in federal court. Right now, we have the lead OMI investigator who got caught on the stand lying, perjuring themselves, committed a crime, and nothing's happened. That happened last year. There is no accountability there. We have a police union that's been infected by politics, acting in ways that don't go towards the betterment of officers, but are acting for the police administration. I'm sorry, for the City of Pittsburgh administration. We tried to organize crisis intervention teams in the SWAT teams. So the SWAT teams go out in plain clothes and look at situations instead of sending out a full SWAT call out. They can now identify if it's a mental illness issue or if it's an actual criminal issue. We need to have someone in there that can look inside and find the problems and change them. I'm the subject matter expert in this area. That's why I'm the only one that can fix it.
Thank you, everyone. And we're moving on to a question about economic development on the north side. And the first respondent will be Mayor Peduto. Excuse me. What opportunities do you see for the north side's economic development in the next 10 years? And how can we capitalize on our strengths to bring positive development to the north side?
I think when you start looking on the hillsides and starting up at the top and coming down towards the river, it's really based on the Main Street approach in building back small businesses that serve the community, in rebuilding out the communities with all the critical third places that you need. So as you're looking at the neighborhoods of Brighton Heights and Troy Hill and all the others as you're coming down, you're looking at building out small communities based around home ownership and the ability to have a community that has what it needs. As you come down towards the river, you start to look towards the eastern side by Hines, and you see the amount of vacant land that is available there, most of it owned by one developer. And you have this opportunity with the 16th Street Bridge to begin to see how the Strip District in the north side can reconnect. Moving down towards the stadium area in East Ohio Street, rebuilding out a Main Street approach, utilizing places like the War Hall, Children's Museum, Mattress Factory, Randyland, in order to create arts and culture as a component of it. Moving further down to the stadium, seeing the rest of that development being built, and past the casino at Chateau, a whole new development that will also recapture Manchester and connect it back into the river. Putting all of that together with Allegheny West Mexican War Streets in Manchester in neighborhood community building that has all of the critical assets as a part of building one united north side.
And next, Representative Gainey.
City has some wonderful cultural assets. There's no question about it. When you see the amount of cultural assets that's on the north side, it's beautiful. And the number one thing that we want to do is we want to be able not to tell you what you need, but work with you to give you what you need. That's the difference of the approach. We know that we have some wonderful opportunities on the north side, but we have to be able to work with you. We got a land bank with all type of parcels in the land bank. Nothing's coming out of the land bank. We could be using the land bank right now on the north side to do some affordable housing, to create some beautiful green space, and work with you to find out how we can best use these parcels. They've been in existence for what, 7, 8 years, and none has moved. That's not working to create a community where everyone is included. That's why I always say it's about how we work together to give you what you want. Not what I tell you is best for you, but how you feel that, particularly with these parcels in the land bank, we can use them to help build a better Northside. That's what we need to do. That's what the people are saying that they want. They don't want always us to come say, this is what you need. No, no, no. Tell us how we can better serve you as public officials. And when we understand the plan that you want for your community, when we understand how we can use the land bank and the parcels that's in it to help facilitate growth on the north side, then we all feel good about each other. And here's the reality. No one gets displaced.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
Can I have that question again, please?
What opportunities do you see for the North Side's economic development in the next 10 years? And how can we capitalize on our strengths to bring positive development to the North Side?
Oh, it's tremendous. There's so much going on. It's just that equal growth that we need. We need to get in, find out where we can best place our growth and include everybody in it. We also need to make sure that everybody citywide and countrywide knows what's going on. I think if we better give it the information out so everybody knows where things are, how to reach them, what's active in them, it'll start to grow out. If we make sure that we target where we're going to put this growth, what kind of growth is needed, try to look in the future, what's going to go on, what's going to be at the attention of everybody's mind in 10 years. And when we could start planning that way, we could really take advantage of how we're looking at what's going to happen in the north side communities. And those things are going to grow out to the rest of the city. The north side's very particular that we're over here on our own, and we need to take care of ourselves on the north side as far as that growth. And that's having the government listen to the north side. So when I'm the mayor, I'm going to come in, find out what's happening in the communities, and then go and reach out and give you the opportunity to get the things you want. And also bring the ideas that are coming from everywhere else and see if we can't tie those in and start to join Pittsburgh together and make the focus on 90 neighborhoods, making one Pittsburgh. And the north side has to be a part of that because we lead the way in a lot of different areas.
Thank you. And Mr. Thompson?
Well, the north side has a lot of tourism and sports revenue, and that's one of our strengths. I think we need to build on that. In a 10-year time frame, we can get an NBA team there that will increase tourism and will increase small business revenue. It'll bring more people into our great city. And when people come to our city and they see how great it is, they want to invest here, they want to move here. They really like Pittsburgh when we get them to show up, and we have to offer something new, novel, to get them to come to our city. That's one of the first steps in bringing more investment in Pittsburgh, is to offer something that brings people in. And certainly on a 10-year time frame, we can either get an NBA team or get a commitment from one, and that will build on some of the strengths we have. And it starts in the river and works its way up. I think we can have positive development that hopefully reaches out to everyone, not just a few.
Thank you. And keeping with the theme of economic development, this is a question about minority-owned small businesses. And the first respondent will be Representative Gainey. How do you propose supporting minority-owned small businesses on the north side, many of whom have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that one, we need to talk to them. When I started talking to them, I've been talking to them. One is, how can we break down the procurement package to create more contract opportunities for them to get involved. Two, as we talked about small businesses in the neighborhood in regards to the influx of money that we're getting in, and how in vulnerable communities, which minorities and minority businesses work in, how we can use some of that money to help them. But what we can't do is continue to act like we just found out there's a tale of two cities. Because see, that hurts. That's painful. Because at the end of the day, we've always known that there was a tale of two cities. People ran on the notion that they would be able to remove the tale of two cities and make one. But we have not invested in any of that, and you don't see it in no priority in any budget. But we can make commercials to say, hey, listen, I understand after 30 years, many as a council person and any as a mayor, that there's a tale of two cities. That hurts. That's traumatic. We've been suffering for a long time. And all that we ask for is say, hey, help us out. You want to improve minority business? We got to be intentional. We got to make sure that we have contracts that we're breaking them down for them to get to. We got an influx of money coming. You just heard us talk about small businesses and what we have to do to ensure that we're reaching out to these vulnerable small businesses on the north side and everywhere else to help them. But to just come to a recognition now that there's a tale of two cities with an African-American in a race, when 8 years ago we said we can erase it, that's traumatic.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
Opportunity. We need to give everybody the opportunity, but specifically in our underserved areas. I go out to East Liberty, I go out to Homewood, and I hit these pop-up events, and you see entrepreneurship thriving there. And it's because that's what they're forced to do. They don't have the opportunity to start these businesses because they're held back by the Licensing and Permits Bureau. They're held back by financing. If we could just give them those abilities to go into these areas that they see fit for their business and give them what they need to operate on their own, they'll thrive. Instead, we make them beg, and it's not right. It's not fair. The thought process that they don't want to work is horrible. I hear this all the time from politicians, and it's just disgusting when you have people out there that all they tell me is, if I just had the opportunity and if I didn't have to beg. So why don't we give it to them? We could target areas where they want to put a business, give them the opportunity to build that building out or get that area completed, get financing in there. That's where we could take some of this money that's coming to us and make it affordable for them to get money without having to pay a price. Give them training on how to run a small business. Just because they have the motivation and ability, we give them barriers to overcome instead of giving them training to get through it. They need to know that we're there for them, and we're not going to tell them how to do it, but give them the opportunity to do it.
Thank you. And next, moving on to Mr. Thompson.
Well, there are some opportunities available, but if you look at a government contract and just try to figure it out on your own, right now, it's not an easy process. It's not straightforward. If you're a small business, filling out a contract isn't as straightforward as it should be. We need like a small government facilitator, an omnibudsman. Someone will help you through the process for those who are unaware. It's like saying there's a grant out there. The difference between there being a grant and you being successfully able to put together a grant application that gets you through the process and gets you the grant. It's a very non-straightforward process. You can run a successful small business and not know how to apply for some of the things available. And then we have to look at our procurement and city contracts and make more opportunities available to small business. And then we have to help them along with the process of applying. Often there are many places that will be a great addition, to our contracts, but we need help. They need some facilitation in order to be able to actually fill out all the paperwork required to make that happen.
Thank you. And Mayor Peduto.
Mr. Moreno is right. It's opportunity. It's what I was trying to say before about the primary job of a mayor. It is looking where there hasn't been opportunity and creating it. When I got into office, our purchasing and procurement system was Byzantine. I said, I want something that's as easy as adding a new tight end on a Sunday morning to my fantasy football league. Make an app so that any business could apply for the work of the city. Since we've created Beacon, the number of minority, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses doing business with the city has increased significantly. And not only that, the first contract that we did was for the cleaning of our senior centers, something that people had complained about for decades. And we only had one company that applied each time. When we created Beacon, 13 companies applied, and the contract went to a minority women-owned business that saved taxpayers money. Now, that's only one very small part. The other major part is it needs direct investment. We need to look at historically Black neighborhoods that have been redlined for decades, where small business and entrepreneurs were not able to get loans because of the zip code. And we have to be proactive in investing directly in those areas where investment was limited or stopped before, which means in
Thank you. And now that concludes the question portion of the forum. So for closing remarks, we are limiting you to 3 minutes each, and the order will be Mr. Moreno, Mr. Thompson, Mayor Peduto, and then Representative Gainey. So Mr. Moreno, when you're ready.
Thank you. Everybody needs to understand right now that there are policies in place that can fix a lot of the problems that we have. They're just not priority. There's money that's there and it's not being used appropriately because it's not priority. We're putting political answers on people problems. I'm sure that everybody here is trying to make the best out of Pittsburgh, but they're all working politically minded. I've done things in my life. I had a career that I retired from successfully. I've been in different employments where I was a plumber's apprentice. I'm a military veteran. I've spent my time on the streets. I've spent my time out in communities. I know what's needed and I know what goes on. We need to prioritize our neighborhoods and our communities. We need to prioritize people. You know, I finished walking the beat downtown and it was thriving. The administration came in and removed me and my team from doing that. We were addressing homelessness in the proper way. We were addressing addiction and mental illness in the right way, and people were getting help. And now that's gone. We need to make sure that we use our police officers correctly and we have accountability. We need to make sure that we're spending our money on our city first, that it's aesthetically pleasing when people come in, they don't see garbage and ruin and blight. If we take care of our city, the city will give back to us. The people will come forward and start taking care of everything that needs to be done if we give them the opportunity. If we take care of our underserved communities, let them know that we care about them and love them by giving them what they want instead of begging, we're going to be better off. If we all treat people with dignity and respect, we'll be fine. I'm asking for your vote, Pittsburgh. I'm asking you to pick me because I'm the only one who's going to come in here and take care of it, take care of the problems that are looking at us in the face without any other things having to be attached to it. There is no quid pro quo here. I'm going to take care of these things and not make you beg. So please remember Tony Moreno for mayor of Pittsburgh, May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Thompson.
Hi, again, I'm Mike Thompson. Let me just say I'm 38. I'll be around the next 30 years. I'm happy to help if you need help in, a neighborhood cleanup, or you want me just to promote your local event. Certainly I'm here. I'm available to help. Also, it's important to not lose hope. I'm a Make-A-Wish kid with a brand new liver, okay? And things can get better. Sometimes you feel like there's no way out of the pandemic, or there's no way out of our economic troubles. But, Pittsburgh is a community of good people, okay? A total stranger gave me half of her liver, and that's just out of the kindness of her heart, because she's a good person. And that's emblematic of us as a city. This is Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. We're good people. We can come together as a community and work through these issues. If there's a permitting problem, we can certainly, cut down on times, hire more people, do a more professional job. And as a community, these are issues that we can solve. It might feel like this pandemic will never end and things will never get better. But, anyone who's lived a life with some adversity knows that that's just how it feels. The reality is we have a brand new president. He's doing a great job. Things will get better. Okay. And if we know they will, because we're going to make it better. Okay. We, our neighbors and friends, and the business community together will make sure that we make things better. So don't lose hope, don't lose faith. I mean, I'm here to listen, as are, my other opponents in this race. And, be sure to reach out. We only may have progress by listening to others and coming together as a better community. It's a pandemic. Please make sure to look after your friends, your neighbors, anyone old or vulnerable in your community. And that's how you start with a better community, by looking after your friends and neighbors. And, then that expands to the community, the neighborhood, and the city. It's a critical time. We have to make sure that we look after one another as people, as equal fellow human beings.
Thank you. Mayor Peduto.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak directly to the North Side. about the specific issues affecting the quality of life in the North Side. I also want to wish to all my friends in the North Side a happy Earth Day. Growing up in the 70s, the North Side was a magical place. David Lawrence's vision of changing a city and transforming with a crowning piece of Three Rivers Stadium was the place that, as a kid, I knew this is the home of Roberto Clemente, of Willie Stargell, of Terry Bradshaw and Mean Joe Green. And in the 70s, it was a magical time to be a part of the city of Pittsburgh. We didn't envision what would happen in the next 10 years or the next 20 years. And the city of Pittsburgh went through not just an economic depression, but a depression. There were very few people back then saying that the best days of the city are still ahead. Most people thought that they were looking in the rearview mirror. And there were a few of us who thought that the city was worth fighting for. And so we stayed. Not my family, not most of my friends that I grew up with, only one of the gang of kids that I grew up with in my high school stayed as well. But during the 90s, seeds were planted and the city was looking towards the future of what could maybe happen. Today, we have a whole different set of challenges. Sitting on a panel with Mayor Murphy, we had the opportunity to realize that we had both been mayors of two very different cities. Managing decline has now changed to managing growth. But the tools to solve the problems of today are not found on Grant Street. They're only made available by partnerships. And as we look at the North Side and we see the challenges that we have critical partners in our large nonprofit institutions like Allegheny Health Network. We have partners in our foundations, in our philanthropic community like the Buell Foundation. And we have the opportunity to pull those together with city government and other types of similar institutions to be able to come up with game-changing programs and policies. We've been working these past 7 years, working with you directly, with AHN, with Buell Foundation, and getting grassroots support to get behind initiatives to make people's lives better. But we're not done. And we won't be done until it affects every part, not just of the North Side, but of the entire city of Pittsburgh. I thank you for these past 7 years and your support in electing me as your mayor. And I ask you to allow us to finish our job.
Thank you. And last, Representative Gainey.
One, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. I appreciated this lively debate. So thank you. One is that we can't build a city on broken promises. We just can't do it. And through the years, we've seen a number of broken promises. We would have more affordable housing throughout the city, the North Side and throughout the rest of the city. 7,000 African Americans have been replaced, forced out or pushed out. We talk about we've expanded the tax base in the city of Pittsburgh. But how do we expand the tax base when 7,000 have been pushed out? As if we weren't even part of the plan. Less affordable housing now than before. The city's less affordable. Broken promise. Police community relations. We were told that we were going to improve police community relations. How we were going to ensure that we build a better Pittsburgh and build a better police community relations. Never happened. Another broken promise. Last summer, you seen the protesters, peaceful protesters, marching through the street because of George Floyd, understanding that they were hurt and injured for what they've seen. Anybody that's seen that image knew that. They marched with signs that said environmental justice. They marched with signs that said LGBTQIA justice, Black Lives Justice, social justice, criminal justice, but the common theme was justice. Instead of us embracing that and building on that as our youth to say, yes, we want a city of justice, they were pushed away, pushed into a park where we know what happened. Pepper spray. Just went for an invitation for bids to get more. The police community relations has been broken down more than ever before. private chats of police officers talking about how deplorable people are, going unchecked. Told us we were going to have a way to make our nonprofits pay their fair share. Another broken promise. Never happened. We talk about partnerships, but we don't talk about how we get them to pay their fair share. Another broken promise. Ran on public works and making sure that public works was going to work for all of the city. Where the morale is so low right now, they don't even want to go to work because they don't have the right equipment. Another broken promise. A gender and equity report. Glad it came out. We talked about how we were going to improve MBEs from the beginning. Another broken promise. We can't build a city on broken promises. Because if you break your promise, how do you say you care to a city that you asking for their vote? A commercial where we're talking about for the first time, we realize there's a tale of two cities. That's painful. And on top of that, it's traumatic. To say that we just found out now, after 30 years in government, that's not being truthful. A vote for Ed Gainey is a vote for change in this city. I can build this city with you. Because working together demonstrates what we can do to move Pittsburgh forward. But we can't do it alone. And so I come to ask for your vote. Pittsburgh, I come to ask for your vote. And what you're going to get from me is a truthful mayor. I'm not here to break promises to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to all of the candidates. We really appreciate you taking the time. And the Northside North Shore Chamber of Commerce is proud to have this opportunity to bring this event to you. And with that, I will close the event, and I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you, everyone.